This lesson may well upset some people. It is a different idea for how to handle a problem that is affecting societies in democratic countries or parliamentary countries all over the world. The title is A Requirement for Equality and Fairness. Rather than leaving the fellowship here, I would prefer you to send out comments so we can open the discussion of this. I'm going to start with a historical review of what has happened, and then I'm going to represent to you a new idea that no one has ever put forward yet. And it is not a joke. It is a valid representation of an idea that would resolve all of the problems. In the history of laws related to reproduction, it is a curious feature that comes immediately apparent to any uninvolved intelligent person. All of the laws, every single one of them, has been written by a body of solely men. Congress, Senate, legislatures of various states in the United States, and then when you go across to the UK, all of Parliament, to Ireland, someplace I know a bit about, their parliamentary process, all men. Going to France, all men. All of Europe, all men when all of these things started. And I believe it was after the pill came out, but before it was legalized. Because when the legalization debate was happening, men, and men were in all of those bodies. And as you got into further processes of the various kingdoms, countries, whatever, the courts that decided on the legalities of things were all men. Then as women were seated in those bodies, elected to office by their constituents of their district, or appointed to the various judgeships, some of the constituents may not have realized that they were voting for a woman, because there were quotes in many newspapers that were very disturbing to me. Get too many of them elected, gonna have one of those matriarch societies. I found that 47 times, starting from 1962 to 1978, in 13 different countries. In a matriarchal society, no such laws are ever needed, for no such issues of chattel with any body, and no rights to access any person's body would ever arise, as they are outlawed of all slavery, but especially for women. All people are given full rights to their bodies from birth to death, and no person or body could remove that right. Starting in the Renaissance, men made strong laws of male control of the female body, in ranks of society from titled and landed gentry, through nobility and, of course, royalty. Women were the free chattel of their fathers, sold to their husbands. That is what a marriage gift was, or a dowry, or a bride price, etc. The groom had to pay to own her, to prove he can care for her, but also to prove he could afford the issue. Issue meaning children. They issue forth. Many of the late 19th century marriage contracts, which I reviewed, showed the influence of the monarch, Queen Victoria, with a female monarch who, gasp, made all decisions regarding her government and her country on her own, as well as many of the Commonwealth countries. She was not a puppet ruler. There was no male secretary behind making her move and dance. But she made laws of thought and brain emancipation for females. The laws to free the female brain and mind and thought ended some female chattel practices, as women were allowed to manage their own affairs. so long as they were below minor nobility, like a count or a viscount was the top point. Women reveled in the freedom, the newness of, quote, having thoughts, close quote, where before they were believed to have strained if staff required orders. The London Gentleman's Daily, October 1897, noted, this same broadsheet had numerous and highly derogatory and inflammatory scientific news articles about how giving women the opportunity to speechify in public would cause her delicate humors to go out of balance, resulting in loss of her fertility and her cycles. Please, reader, we apologize for such delicate discussion of such delicate and vital processes to our readers. Yeah, misogyny happened much in your house. But even prior to this, and continuing through suffrage in both US 1920 and UK 1928, in both cases, men refused to allow women to vote for 40 and 43 years respectively. The men had the leaders, women arrested and declared insane for male potency, as evidenced by their striving for their own vote, and had them committed to mental institutions. And in these horrible places, if you were sane when you went in, you were not when you came out, if you did come out, because these were such disease-ridden places. This is where TB started. And then as someone came out, they gave it to the entire population. This was the place where, if this was the late 19th century, this is where COVID would have happened and then been spread. That's how infested and horrible these places were. This is also where highborn girls with pregnancies went for being sexually indecent. By 1948, the highborn women and girls went to their MDs and had a DNC, which is a minor surgical procedure, done in office. So no one was the wiser. The difference? Women had a bit of power after 2 world wars, where they managed and ran the country, worked in the factories, running them more efficiently with less waste, fewer hours to make more planes, submarines, tanks, and whatever. Just so that you know, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that is where the majority of U.S. submarines were built. The submarines did all of their sea trials in Lake Michigan. For those of you not of the United States, please open up a map of the United States. Look all the way to the top of the map, in the middle, and you'll see Minnesota. I'm waving at you, because we're at the top in the middle, and then next to us is Wisconsin. Look at the Great Lake named Michigan, and you'll see Milwaukee right on that lake. That's where they built submarines in World War II. They tried them in the lake, and then they went down the Mississippi to get to New Orleans, to get into the sea. And here the Germans were looking all over the place, around New York, around California, to look where they were building the submarines. They never thought for a minute that we would build them in the Midwest. Hooray for us. The wealthy men always needed to have women dying of abortion to show how much smarter they were than women. But men, you always walk away. You never take responsibility when you get a woman pregnant who's not your wife and who you don't mean to marry. They never have their lives torn up by a pregnancy when they were the actors in it. Girls don't get pregnant by sitting on a dirty toilet seat. The girl might have asked, "Have you got a condom?" "Oh yeah, right here. Oops, guess it broke. Ha ha ha." So there is a pill right now that men could take to stop reproduction of those fruitful swimmers. We can call it the Equal Reproduction Act or the Repro Act. it would be passed in such a way that all unmarried men up to the age of 65 and all males 14 to 21 will be required to take the pill daily and give a DNA sample for paternity matching. Each male is required to sign the understanding of the Repro Act every time they pick up a supply of the drugs. Here is the Repro Act. If I am found to be the biological father of any issue by any women to whom I am not married, the baby will become my primary financial responsibility for the next 21 years minimum. I, as father, will go to prison and be forced to turn over all income to feed, clothe, house, provide medical and dental care every day of his life. I am responsible for all school fees, costs of equipment if the child wishes to try sports, etc. And this does not allow the male to have any rights of contact or custody. This is just for the costs of minimal care. If he attempts to jump out of responsibility, or if the mother cannot do primary custody, then the male will have primary custodial parent in addition to paying all costs for lifetime to at least 21. It can go up to 27 years old if the child wishes to do college. If the male escapes his responsibility, financial, it will fall on paternal grandparents, or they will pay all of the mother's retaining 100% custody. If a young man doesn't want to take the pill, or the mother or the parents are fools, they must have 5 visits both with lawyers and accountants to learn the full costs to the family for each year and each circumstance. After these counseling sessions are complete, if the young man still wishes to risk his entire future, and his parents are still idiots and wish to risk theirs too, they may sign a voluntary withdrawal from the program. He must then carry a card that explains to any partner that he is not taking the preventive pill, and every single partner must sign a cognizance of that risk before he can engage in any foreplay, before he can engage in any sexual activity. This law will remain in effect for a minimum of 550 years, for that is a minimum reflection of how long the men of this world have held women in total slavery and subjugation. It's actually 1/10. The time can be extended if the male-dominated bodies, again, enact chattel principles and or refuse to provide safety to the young women while young men are led around by their tumescent sticks. The cost of all infant care will become tax-deductible for whomever is paying. If female slavery acts are advanced, as they are doing right now in the southern states, the male equivalent must also be enacted, where male need to get permission to obtain a vasectomy. They require a 24-hour waiting period after counseling prior to having the vasectomy. If they are married, they must have a written permission slip from their wife. Even if there's a claim after a vasectomy, even if there's a claim of a health problem of the man, the partner's spouse will see that this is a murder of over 5.75 trillion infants over 30 years, granting 3 times per week of ejaculation to 4.35 quadrillion over 45 years. Thus, those who stand around outside any clinic who may, in the course of providing full women's health care, may provide a D&C or an abortion. You should get yourself over to every urologist's office and every surgical clinic that does vasectomies. Because if you're truly trying to save the lives of infants, boy, are you missing the damn boat. If every single vasectomy is killing trillions to quadrillions of babies, and you're standing there to save one, boy, you don't have a bloody clue in your head, do ya? No, you're just doing it because it's the most sexist thing you can do that day. So think about it. If you're not being dragged about by your tumescent stick.